Welcome to Cultivated Live for Tuesday, June 11th. My name is Jay Rosenthal. I'm the co-founder of Cultivated Media, the host of this program, Cultivated Live. And since we launched, our goal at Cultivated has been to be cannabis industry first, providing you with the most important, insightful, useful, and timely information every single day. And we do it in a number of different ways, but two primarily. One, through our daily newsletter at Cultivated Daily. You can find that at cultivated.news. And we do that through this daily live stream, which is Cultivated Live. We would love. Follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe to us on YouTube, get our newsletter in your inbox every day, because not every day, but on Tuesdays, we have with us Brad Spirrison, the founder and CEO of Grown In. We talk about policy, politics, and cannabis during United States of Cannabis segment. Brad, welcome.
It's so great to be here, Jay. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. We have a lot to get through today. And I'll tell you what it's going to be, and so you can start preparing. One, we're going to talk about New York, because there's a pretty groundbreaking story that came out of a publication called The City today. We'll touch on that. But that'll lead into, I want to compare and contrast two governors, New York's governor and Florida's governor, over the past week and their moves on cannabis. And then finally, I want to get some Chicago and Boston stuff out of the way from last week about GTI and Boston Beer Company. How does all that sound?
It sounds lovely. A hat trick of hash.
You do love the poetry of it, don't you?
The alliteration, my friend.
The alliteration. We should actually come up with a segment every day, which is like a cannabis haiku to encapsulate the news. What do you think of that? I'm sure ChatGPT could do it for us, but
very well. Yeah, I know, but we still need our day. We still need our jobs, so let's not outsource it to the computers just yet, my friend.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Brad, there is a story. I just read it, so the details, I don't have all the details for you, but I think it speaks to the past 2 or 3 years, really, in New York cannabis. It's in a publication called The City. If you go to cultivated.news, you will read about it tomorrow. It dives deep, and there's lots of finger pointing between, I would say, 3 key groups. One is the Office of Cannabis Management, the folks really in charge of rolling out cannabis in the state. 2, the Dormitory Authority of the state of New York, DASNY, which builds things in New York for the state. They were in charge of getting some dispensaries open, the first 150 in New York, which they still haven't all this time. And the governor's office. Sort of those are the 3 key parties in this. And it seems at first blush in the story that there was pushback from the OCM about the work that DASNY was doing, and a social equity fund that was partially funded by the state that was run, or to be run, by Chicago Atlantic. This is all to say that New York has been a challenging rollout. And now I don't know if the chickens are coming home to roost, but there's a Hebrew word for it called balagan. And that's what this is. It's a balagan. It's a mess.
Sounds like a lot of mishigas to me.
There you go. I knew you'd come through with that. But it is, but let me be fair to New York. There are challenges rolling it out in every state. There were challenges in Illinois, which you're most familiar with.
Every state. I mean, the New York as a market is roughly 1.5 to 2 years behind Illinois. And 1.5 to 2 years ago in Illinois, it was an utter mess. Whereas today we have a pretty functioning, if not thriving, market where new dispensaries are opening every day, new craft growers are opening every day, and there's seems to be a balance between the incumbent operators, which are the same operators in New York, the Crescos, the PharmaCans, the GTIs, etc., and everybody else coming in. New York, of course, is exceptional as a place, as a state of mind, to quote Billy Joel. So I think that it won't necessarily resolve in the same way other markets will. But to your point, this stuff is hard. It's not. I've yet to see any program succeed. I would argue that New York is the most ambitious in terms of its incorporation of social equity into policy and giving the rights of those most disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs a equal chance to thrive in this new market. What we have found is progressive intent is not always executed with full fidelity. And right now we have, and I'm allowed to say this on this show, a shit show.
Yes. But Can I end that sentence with a but, because this is where I want to go with this. Regardless of, well, not regardless, we will find out what has happened over the past year and a half, 2 years with Governor Hochul, Dasney, and the OCM. But at this point, earlier this year, the governor called the rollout of cannabis a disaster, and to my mind, and I think many others, has taken steps to try to rectify it. Let's say that. Yes, this included a top-down review of the Office of Cannabis Management. The report has been issued about that review, and now the old sort of executive director, Chris Alexander, has stepped down, or is about to, and yesterday, new leadership was announced. And I want to contrast that. So, like, yes, it might have been a disaster, but the governor taking a stronger hold now and trying to implement change and move the industry forward in New York. I want to contrast that, because we're talking policy, politics, and cannabis, with what is happening in Florida with Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, who has very early on said he is opposed to the measure to legalize cannabis, which is on the November ballot. He has got the Republican Party in the state of Florida to also oppose it, to raise money against it, and is setting up all the apparatus to do that. And this week, there were bills on his desk to regulate hemp in Florida. Now, this is going to take some political jujitsu to explain concisely. The governor vetoed that bill to regulate hemp under the thought that the same hemp industry might be on his side to vote against and fund against the campaign to legalize cannabis. So he's pitting the hemp industry against the cannabis industry for a ballot measure in November. I just think, we have the Democratic governor of New York trying to move things forward positively on one hand. We have the Republican governor of Florida really doing anything he can politically, policy-wise, using his veto pen to get this measure, which has overwhelming support in Florida, to fail. Do I have anything wrong here, Brad?
No. I mean, literally, he's supporting companies that, would happily provide 1,000 milligram bag of like counterfeit Cheetos ahead of regulated, lab tested, employee trained, because he doesn't want to see that. I think this is the United States of cannabis, and so when in New York, what you see is an admirable attempt to try to solve what may be an impossible problem, whereas in Florida, what you're seeing is an intentional blocking of progress toward an industry that's trying to responsibly self-regulate itself. And he is using everything at his disposal, including, allowing something that is, distinctly more dangerous than anything in the regulated market to actually get in front of consumers. I think it says a lot about him as a politician, and it says a lot about the lengths that certain governors and certain politicians will go to stand in the way of a thriving, functioning cannabis market.
Yes. And I will just add one point to that, is that I'm not saying the ship has sailed, but the ship is well on its way. Like, legalization will happen in Florida, not to say in our lifetimes. It's going to happen in the next 2 to 5 years.
Sure.
Right. It's just there. And by the way, the latest poll out of Florida has the measure passing pretty overwhelming. It needs 60%. I think the latest poll had it at 63%. The abortion measure, which he's also opposing to preserve abortion rights, is like at 67%. Like, he's on the wrong side of many of these issues. And it just seems to me like an old guard trying to hang on to something that's not even there anymore.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure the difference between DeSantis and other governors is he's sitting on a multi-billion-dollar market that's already thriving, that's already bigger than many of the adult use recreational markets as it is. So I think for many reasons, because of his opposition, this is, along with, executing finally on rescheduling as well as safe banking, truly is a key frontier in the battle for cannabis normalization in 2024.
Yeah. He thinks cannabis is too woke? Is that what his thing is? Like, if you were in his campaign room, is that what he's saying? And they're like, it's just too woke? Like, it doesn't make
any sense.
If
there were ever a politician that needed to try the substance before he regulated it, it would be Governor DeSantis. Probably would have been better in the Republican primary if he did.
In fact, we should host a smoking lounge at the Republican National Convention this summer.
That would be awesome.
We'd be very lonely. I don't think they're coming to visit us, Brad.
Yeah, Wisconsin, we might have a little bit of trouble with the authorities. We
We'll
could do
bring
it.
them right over the border to
Yeah, we could do it
Kenosha.
at the DNC.
What's right on the border this is your neck of the woods?
We can
Illinois.
go. How is this for a transition? There is a Rise consumption dispensary operated by Green Thumb Industries in Mundelein, Wisconsin, which is near the border of Mundelein, Illinois, which is right near the border of Wisconsin.
See, I knew you'd get to it.
Yeah,
it always comes back to Illinois. Brad, I do want to get to Illinois and actually specifically GTI, so it's a very good transition. Very canny of you.
Thank you.
Can your thoughts last week because I had to I forget who was on Tuesday, but they could only do Tuesday, so I had to bump you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Last week, one of my favorite stories in the cannabis industry was a letter that Ben Kovler, the CEO of Green Thumb Industries, GTI, based in Chicago, Illinois, sent to Boston Beer Company CEO, suggesting that GTI basically merge into Boston Beer Company, take their listings, take the company, and become one company because of the listings, because of normalization, because it gives Boston Beer Company access to the cannabis market and presumably GTI access to Boston Beer Company's market. It was quite a splash in the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, I think GTI, for the most fundamental reason, operates differently than every other cannabis company in the United States, primarily because it's the only one that's figured out how to achieve profitability.
Yeah.
Now, GTI, like Verano, like Trulieve, like a couple of others, is essentially controlled by an individual rather than a board. In this case, it's Ben Kovler, the co-founder and CEO. Now, Kovler is a scion from the alcohol and spirits industry with his great-grandparents, I believe, having founded Jim Beam Corporation and everything else. And so when it comes to particularly the intersection between the spirits industry and cannabis, Kovler is playing chess while everybody else is playing tic-tac-toe. So I think that whether it's efforts in Florida to actually distribute out of Circle K's, or in New York City to partner with Magnolia Bakery and everything else, I think what you see out of GTI, in addition to executing on its fundamentals and creating a lean, mean, not always well-liked corporation, I think that group, and Kovler in particular, has a much more nuanced understanding in terms of how to incorporate cannabis into other regulated industries, a la spirits with Samuel Adams, Boston Beer Company, Magnolia, Circle K, everything else.
Yeah, it's and I guess this portends, because you said it, GTI is more advanced than many in this realm, sort of the intersection of cannabis and other sort of verticals. Do you think others will follow? I guess that's my next question. Like yes, Ben Kovler and GTI are sort of on the forefront, but as rescheduling happens, as safer banking presumably will happen, like, do you think we will see a lot more of this or measured amounts of this?
Definitely. We're already seeing some. PharmaCann here in Chicago is like 10 or 15% owned by Altria, which is formerly Philip Morris.
Yeah.
So not just on spirits, but in tobacco. Cresco, if you remember, famously during the Super Bowl week, partnered with another group to make infused dipping sauce for buffalo wings. I think, and I'm a Chicago homer, of course, when you see cannabis companies come out of big cities with thriving advertising and marketing communities, these people, with rescheduling, once other industries have permission to interact more significantly with the cannabis industry, you're going to see much more of that. for a variety of reasons. One, additional market share. Two, in this case, the chance of uplisting and stocks like Green Thumb Industries being on the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange or whatever the case may be. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that in the months ahead as rescheduling becomes, pardon the pun, fully baked in.
See, you're always good for it, Brad. You really are.
Thank you very much.
It's right top of mind for you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you, Brad. I appreciate you coming on Tuesdays. We're gonna wrap up for today, if that's okay with you.
Always.
Because I got to get to reread that story in the city today in about New York. So, Brad, I will send you that story so you can read it as well. And that is it for today's Cultivated Live. You can find everything we do at cultivated.news. We encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on LinkedIn, smash the subscribe button on YouTube. If you're following us on my Twitter account, hello, thank you for joining us. We'll be back here again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. I guess it's 7 a.m. Pacific right here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and sometimes on my Twitter account. Brad, thanks for making time.
Always a pleasure.